Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for our webcast. Before we get started, just want to go over a few housekeeping items. All attendees have been muted. If you have a question or any technical issues, please type them in the chat or question box you'll see on your screen. All questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. This webcast will be recorded and it will be posted to our website as well as our YouTube channel. So for our webcast today, we have a Dynamics SL webcast focused on SL 2015 CU2 and web apps. So we have Jeff Suin from Microsoft, who is presenting today's webcast. I'll turn it over to you, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you everybody for taking time out of your busy day to come learn about the latest things that are happening in the Dynamics SL world. And there's been a lot here over the last couple months, and we've got a lot coming up here. So we're going to spend some time just to kind of recap in case you missed some of the things that have happened in the last month or so. So the agenda for today, I always like to do this in my presentations because I always want my customers to be aware of things that are happening. So we're going to go over a little bit of the SL life cycle and some announcements around that just to make sure that you are aware where things are with the standard life cycle process. And then we're going to go jump into CU2 and talk about real quickly when did that release and why should I be thinking about it. And we actually include some bonus things with our CU2 release. We'll talk about those and how you might benefit from those in the future. And then we're going to talk about the SL 2015 the SL 2015 web apps. Originally called CU2, we removed the moniker of CU2 from it, and I'll explain to you why we did that. And we're going to focus a lot of this is kind of walking through some of the enhancements. I am using the prerequisite that you have seen web apps before. So if you have not, I know that SBS has other webinars where I've gone through the whole product and shown off all the web apps things. I'm kind of going from the site that you already know about the basics, and I'm going to discuss some of the enhancements that are in there now and might give you a couple of hints of some new enhancements that will be coming out here in the next month or two. And then we'll end with the roadmap, where are we going, what's going to happen this year, what are the things that are going to be happening with the next release and so forth. So that's the focus for today. Hopefully this is meeting what you're expecting. And again, as Chris said, if you have any questions during that, please go ahead and write those in and we will address them at the end of the presentation. So the first thing I would talk about again is life cycle. This might seem a little bit old, but there are still people out there that are on Microsoft Dynamics SL7. We are now, this is one of the first products in a while that's going to be releasing and going from extended support to the end of life support, so to speak, meaning it's no longer going to have someone who will be available to provide you support. So when does this happen? Well, October 10th of 2017, this year, what's going to happen is that means that, well, if you call in for support and you're having an issue, well, generally support will not be available for you. Again, I'm not going to say that people are going to turn you away, though that's probably what they're supposed to do, or that's not how we're built. We're built to help out. But in general, if you're on SL7, you're not going to get support for your version of Dynamics SL. And I assume also the fact that if you are using Dynamics SL7, that you probably stopped using standard SL support a while ago, and hopefully you've engaged with a partner like SBS to provide you with the type of support that you need to be able to move that. So just as an FYI there. The next thing is SL 2011 last year moved from mainstream support to extended support. So I wanted to kind of touch base on, hey, what in the world does that mean? Basically what that means, of course, me as the marketing guy, that means it's time to upgrade. Of course, I would say that for anything, but really what does that mean? Well, as long as you're on a supported version of SL 2011, and these are the general versions that are out there right now, SP2/FP1, you are not going to see FP1 listed anywhere, but FP1 kind of goes along with Service Pack 2. And Service Pack 3, if you're on those latest versions, that means you can still call up and you can still get support. So those are still going on. Now what changes is that hot fixes are no longer being created for SL 2011. What does that mean? Well, that means that if you are out there and you find an issue with the way that the product is working. Now, I would assume after 5 years of being in mainstream support, I'd say most of the major things are gone and have been taken care of. But what that means is if you're on 2011 today and you find an issue, generally we are not going to create a hotfix for it. We might see if it's still happening in the latest version and make an adjustment going forward. But when we go from mainstream to extended, we generally do not create new hotfixes. It's pretty much the standard thing. Now, another big thing is no longer will we have year-end updates for SL 2011. So if you continue to stay on SL 2011 through the end of this calendar year, and it is important for you to be able to get tax updates or any changes to any of the forms, those will generally not be available for SL 2011 at the end of this year. That's the standard procedure for any Microsoft Dynamics Dynamics product, not just Dynamics SL. So keep that in mind as you're planning out for the rest of the year. Now, if you need more information and you want to get some high-level information around Lifecycle, you can go to the Lifecycle website. Go to Microsoft and search Lifecycle, or go to Customer Source and search it, or you can go and put this really, really long URL in. I'm sure you're not going to do that, but you can if you'd like, just to let you know that it is out there. All right, so the next thing, we've talked about Lifecycle. Let's talk about a couple of announcements. Back in December, and I think we say that here, the SL 2015 CU2 release was basically the very end of December is when it came out. And what that is a CU2 or cumulative update is basically taking any hotfixes that have released since the last version of SL 2015, which would have been SL 2015 CU1. Basically what we do is we wrap in all the hotfixes that have happened since then into one bundle, plus any new hotfixes that we have that address any specific issues. So the benefit of that is that if you're on, maybe plain vanilla 2015 and you want to make sure you've got the latest and greatest, you can work with your partner to deploy CU2 over top of the existing. Now, what this release is, again, it's hotfixes. It's all based on your rich client experience. So this is nothing to do with web apps. This is standard SL rich client installation that you have, the full client, whatever you might happen to call it at your company. It's addressing those areas, and we continue to work on anything that's past CU2, but a good starting point if you're either upgrading to 2015, obviously your partner at SBS is going to take you up to CU2 at a minimum, and then see if there's any additional hotfixes to address any specific issues that might address the modules that you're using. So again, that's available. It's been released as of December 2016, and we continue to move forward with making any updates to anything else that's sitting out there. Now, as a bonus, generally we don't have these in these releases, but I wanted to get and jump on something that we're really excited about in the Microsoft and in the Dynamics SL community, and that's around Power BI. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. I know here at SBS they're really kind of ahead of the curve. They've been using another solution that'll provide you information, but one of the things that we wanted to do for the general SL customer base is get them interested in the idea of Power BI and being able to give you graphical KPIs to be able to monitor your information. So if you've been using SBS, you probably are well aware of the functionality and features in the KPI world, but this is one of the first ones that we're coming out that we're releasing with actual Dynamics SL connectors built into it. So the first thing that we've done is in the CU2 release we have a generic document, and it walks through how to connect Power BI to Dynamics SL. And again, if you don't know what Power BI is, go out to the Microsoft site and search Power BI, and you'll see lots of videos and learning and information on it. But think of it basically as a way to represent information inside, in this case, Dynamics SL. So for example, this information down here is looking at labor and expenses against your SL database. We're looking at margin versus gross margin month to date or gross margin project. We can look at the top 10 projects based on certain criteria to be able to drill down and see a little information about your projects. So the first thing that I was talking about here is, again, we have a quick way how do you connect Power BI to Dynamics SL. And the cool thing, too, is we also create a dashboard. It is a project dashboard that connects to your project information, so and it can be deployed on your database today. Quick side note, it is built for 2015, but if you had an older version of 2011, it can be kind of put out there as well if that's something that you're interested in. But I would definitely, in your case, you're in a good advantage. You have some very deep knowledge in the whole idea of KPIs and Power BI and BI 360 at your fingertips. So definitely reach out to your SBS consultant to find out a little bit more about that. But this is kind of us dipping our toe into the area. I didn't want to have to wait to the next major release to show you the benefit of Power BI. So we give you a quick way to connect to it, and we give you some sample dashboards that you can deploy against it. So how do you get those? Again, downloading CU2, which you can contact your SBS consultant, get them to get the files from CU2, and you can go ahead and start working with them and understanding. And I'm sure they would be happy to deploy it for you as well. Again, different reports. This is all interactive. It's very cool in the fact that you can actually select the years that you want to report on, multiple years, or what you want to see, the top 10 rankings, what you can even get down to the periods, what periods you want to see. It's very nice because it's very interactive and allows you to kind of come up with your own information, the ways you want to slice and dice the information into this these type of reports. So we have one that's a month-to-date type version. We have the same thing, but it's a inception to date. Again, one is showing me from month to date, show me how we're doing, show me from the beginning of time for this project how we've been doing. So it kind of gives you two different ways to look at the data. And we also have a top 5 and bottom 5 by projects and by project managers. And we have a myriad of different ways you can slice and dice and measurements on the left-hand side. Just take a quick gander. I know it's kind of maybe a little bit small here, but again, commitments and ETC and EACs, lots of different ways that we can get slice and dice this information. So very, very excited to have that out there to you early. We will continue to build out and add more dashboards. Obviously, the first one we focused on is the project customers, because that's where we get a lot of people using the solution. But look for us to go ahead and start adding these dashboards in the next major release of SL to other areas of the product as well, in the financial areas and so forth. So definitely be on the lookout for that. If you haven't seen it yet, I'd encourage you to look at it, and if not as well, reach out to your SBS consultant to get more information. All right, another announcement that just came out, and you are actually the first people for me to make this public announcement, is that if you've been waiting to go up to SL 2015 or you're getting ready to purchase a new server, one of the things that we are happy to say is that we now officially have added support for these new solutions from Microsoft that have been out there since the middle or end of last year. So we now support Office 2016. So if you're on CU2, we have Office 2016, Server 2016, and SQL Server 2016. And literally just the end of last month, we finished all of our official testing with CU2 against those. The big thing to note is that we did not have to do any changes to CU2 to make them compatible. That's a good sign. Now, this is where I have to put the disclaimer in there because my development person gets mad at me when I say this. But generally what this means, if we didn't have to make any changes to CU2, in general, and I can't say it's going to be, but we haven't officially tested for CU1, but I don't see anything that would block you from having to run CU1 on those versions as well. There might be something that might pop up, but in general, I can say if you're maybe still on CU1, more than likely you'll be able to have support for those well. But if you are going to take the time to upgrade to 2016, I would spend the time to go up to CU2. It's going to save you a lot of potential headaches. Not that I'm saying it's going to happen, but there is a potential, obviously, since we haven't officially tested CU1 against it. So take that for what it is. Definitely talk to your SBS consultant about getting up to CU2. And if you're getting ready to deploy a new server, you're probably very excited to have that compatibility and support available. Look for an update to the system requirements later in March timeframe. So we'll be adding this type of information, but this is literally hot off the press just days ago, so I'm happy to share that with you today. All right, another announcements were around web apps. And if you've spoken to me or heard us speak about web apps in the past, we were going to have a SL 2015 CU2 web apps release, but one of the things that I got a lot of questions on was, okay, well, I can't deploy CU2 web apps until I get onto SL 2015 CU2, correct? And the answer is no, actually. It really has no tie to what version. So I kind of, at the last minute, you might like it or hate it, but we kind of broke off the CU2 moniker onto web apps because I wanted everyone to know that web apps work on any version of SL 2015. So if you're in plain 2015 or CU1 2015 or CU2 2015, web apps is going to work with it, and that's the way we really designed it. We haven't obviously made any major changes inside of the database, so that's fine, and we can deploy whatever web apps on top of that. The second thing that we made an announcement when I changed the name, or we changed the name, I'm sorry, it wasn't me, we changed the name to that, is back in December we decided that we were going to go on a monthly release cycle. And the reason why is we wanted to get, of course, hot fixes out to people. So if you found something, you know, when I do this, that, press here, do that, and in this certain situation something's happening, that we can address those as soon as we can and not have, you don't have to wait, you know, months and to get something fixed. So obviously we want to get those out to you as soon as possible. Secondly, we wanted to be able to add new features to the product. We'll talk a little bit later. The next version of SL will be releasing next year, but I didn't want to have to say, oh, there's this really cool way that's going to make things work better for you in web apps, but you can't have it for a year, because that's not going to make anybody happy. And if there's somebody that's on the fence and getting ready to move out to web apps, I'd love to, you know, show them the continued investment in web apps and what we're doing. So we have been releasing web apps releases at least once a month. It's actually, it's averaging out to about once a month. It's basically based on a new model that we have, is the agile model for the web apps, where we're doing what we call sprints. We go through three to 4 week sprints at a time, get in the things that we need to do. I'm constantly there saying, hey, let's add this new feature. And the features that we're getting are great features that we're getting feedback from partners and customers like yourself. So if you have an idea on that, we'll, again, share that with your SBS partner, but also I'll give you my email address. If something that's going to make your life easier in the web apps world, we're really, really interested in hearing about it and taking a look at that and seeing if it makes sense to roll that into the product. So the major thing, again, I talked about CU2 not happening, but we did have a bunch of things to release in that CU2 release, and I just kind of lovingly call it the December release. And that's where we had over 50 different web app enhancements. I'm not just talking about hot fixes, I'm talking about enhancements that we made to the core product. And we're going to spend the next 10-15 minutes kind of walking through those to kind of let you know what about some of those that are out there. And then when we're done, we'll kind of come back and kind of talk about some of the new things that are coming out as well. So along with those enhancements and hot fixes, we actually had 3 new web apps. So there's now one for vendor maintenance, customer maintenance, and payroll employee maintenance. And if you've followed the whole web apps kind of journey here, the first area that we focused on was getting all that business portal functionality over to the web apps, which that is there and more. And then we're starting to go back and add the functionality that people wanted to have available to them remotely. So you can see, obviously, if you are a person in charge of payables or receivables and you're on the road and you don't want to have to remote into SL, you can just jump onto your tablet or your smartphone, log in, take a look at a vendor or customer, make adjustments, add whatever you have to do. So again, starting to move more of the SL for everyone out to those web apps to make them available. Now, again, there is a February release available. It's available today. It released actually probably mid to late February when it came out. So there's hot fixes, there's some tweaks to the existing interface. And then we have our next kind of wave of enhancements are going to happen here in March or April. And that depends on the rollout time frame. But we'll talk about some of these new things. We're looking at some changes to the interface. Again, March, April right now. Again, there's a potential to slip to May, but right now it's looking pretty good, probably at least by the April timeframe. Again, my developer will be kicking me because he doesn't want to save that yet. But again, we're working on things for the interface that will be exciting to tell you guys about. Making things easier to use, some functionality that we got from some good enhancements to make data entry easier, quicker to get to, quicker to rely on. We've added that functionality and some new ease of use there and some new functions on top of it. some requests around the time card area, make it so I can get a time card if I accidentally submit it for approval and I need to grab it back to make an enhancement, something you can't do in SL. Well, why not? Why would we stop you from being able to do something that's going to make life easier? So again, just to kind of show you, web apps continue to go on. We continue to enhance them, and we continue to get great feedback on them, and people are really excited about what we've done here since the December release, and we continue to move forward with that. Again, what we're going to do now is talk about what are those new web app enhancements that we did in December, and just so you are aware of them in case you are sitting on an older version of web apps, or if you've been waiting to go up to web apps to kind of tell you why we want you to do that. But first, let's just make sure you are all aware of currently what the web apps are that are out there. Obviously, project and time entry is available to you, so if you haven't seen it yet, again, contact one of your SBS consultants or look at an old SBS webinar that I've done, and you can learn about a lot of these items that are out there. Time entry, expense entry, you would expense. Also, timesheet entry, going for the people that are, it's your job to put time in from other people, along with, of course, with approvals. The whole project maintenance functionality is out there. Now we can even add new employees and resources remotely, set them up, and we can even set up their rates along with our project analyst feature. Second, right column here, employee utilization, an entire module that was never available remotely, now available, so now I can keep track of the fact that Jeff needs to be billable, 70% of the time each week, so we can keep track of that and see how he's doing against that, so a whole utilization module. And to go along with that module, a whole way to actually plan against it, so that's the second one right below it. Again, the ones we talked about that just got released in December, as well as an inventory lookup, some great functionality around reporting where I can actually go ahead and view reports that are usually only available in the Rich client. I can now view them remotely, as well as our quick query functionality, our item request entry and approval, and our payroll time card entry as well. So with that, let's go ahead and start talking about some of the new features that we have out there. So the first thing we did is kind of focused on a lot of, again, these are all based on customer feedback. Let me take a step back. Customer and partner feedback is what's helping us out here because they're the ones that are using it. Those are the ones that are finding the ways that we can make it better. One of the things that was in the original time card entry screen is when you wanted to add a new row, you had a new button, which would pull up a submenu that you'd have to then choose whether you want to use the assigned or unassigned feature, which we'll talk about in a second. And then, but think about that. That's 2 additional clicks I have to click to get to where I want. Instead of clicking twice, wouldn't it be great if I wanted to go ahead and just get to choosing my project and moving forward? Well, taking one less click can be a time saver as you're putting your time over and over. So what we did inside of the SL screen is we added 2 buttons called My Projects and Projects, and we got them off that submenu. We moved them here. Now you might say, well, you had assigned and unassigned. Well, that was kind of a little confusing to the end users as well. The idea behind assigned was the idea of the projects that if you've chosen the feature to show people just the projects that they've been assigned to, that was the idea behind it. But it was kind of confusing because the unassigned meant you would think, okay, well then if I go to the unassigned button, I can't choose an assigned project, right? Well, that's not really what it meant. So what we did is we changed the button. So unassigned is now called My Projects because these are the projects that I've been assigned to. And projects is just like I want to choose any project that's out there, and you can do that. So we've replaced it. We removed a click. You're getting to what you need to do quicker, and now you've got the names that make more sense to the end user. Now, you might say, Jeff, that's great, you moved it here, but the common thing that I hear as well is that, you know what, we love the My Project functionality. I only want Jeff to see the project he's been assigned to. How do we get rid of that projects button? And then prior to this release, you would have to call and someone would have to come in and customize your screen to do that. Or, hey, we don't like the idea of My Projects, we don't do it, so don't confuse them, I just want the projects button. No problem. We have added functionality to actually go ahead and turn off the My Project and the Projects button. So that means there's now a new setting, and we've used an existing screen in SL called the Control Parameter Maintenance screen, a screen used inside of Project that allows me to go ahead and I choose my control code and my control type, and what it allows me to do is turn on or turn off both of those fields. So I can say, yep, I don't want my projects on ever. I'll set its value to yes, I want to disable it, and it'll go ahead and remove it from the screen. No custom coding. I don't have to ask anybody. It's just a setting inside of SL, which is the way it should be. Same thing with our projects button as well. Same exact idea. Now, out of the box, they're both going to default to saying yes, display them, and then we can come in here and change them as needed. But again, we've removed clicks, added new functionality, but also added new abilities to customize, remove the things that you don't want. The next thing is we had certain customers come to us and say, hey, we need to be able to look not only at the information on the upper section here of exactly what project and task I'm working on, but sometimes I need to actually know what company it was as well as any contracts that it was associated with. That's going to help me understand whether this task that I'm choosing or about to enter is the right project. So it's not editable information, but it's something that you can view on the screen and not, so now you're going to know exactly what it is. So again, a setting inside of the control parameter maintenance screen does exactly what you need. Again, tells us whether you want to show those fields or not. It will default to no, that they will not display, but if your company needs that information, you just set it to yes, and those values will display. Okay, same for both of those fields. So we actually broke it out into two fields. All right, the next one. When you are choosing a project or task, or project and task, excuse me, just to show to my existing users, there was a requirement in the past where you couldn't just have project and task, you had to throw in another field to make the screen to display properly. I just wanted to kind of show off to them that, again, if you choose project and task, that's all you need in the SO world to choose, put a line item in and put time against it. You just need that project and task. So if that's all you need, you can now go ahead and just set those values and make them display properly. Now, how do I get to only displaying project and task? Because when I look at it, I see all these fields. Well, it is a combination of two things. We use the project flex time in the setup screen. We use the ability to turn on and off fields. So a good chunk of the fields can be turned off and on here. But we've also, for the ones that didn't exist in the core product, we've actually added them to an administrative access rate screen inside of web apps. So this is inside the web app screen. I can go ahead and turn on and turn off certain fields. I can go ahead and make them visible or enable them and so forth. So I can go ahead and make modifications. In this case, I turned off the earn type. I can go ahead and turn those on and off. So basically, any field on that time entry pretty much can be turned on or turned off using these two functionalities. All right, the next one was for time entry. The initial time entry, for some reason, was initially coded to only let you display 5 line items of a time card at a time, which if you're on a small device, that probably works pretty well. But if you are on a large device like a desktop, it's a little bit less to be desired. I got all this, real estate to be able to display things, and it's only showing me 5 lines. So we now have the ability to sort from 1 to 20 lines per page. And let me make an update because we've actually updated that since this release. It's now, I think, up to 30 plus lines can now be added per page. Now you might say, why? Well, believe it or not, there are customers out there that are doing a lot of time entry using their desktops, using the latest and greatest HD monitors, and they want to be able to take advantage of many lines as they can. So I'll tell you that that number is now up to, if I'm mistaken correctly, it's 35 instead of 20. But as of if you're on the December release, you can now set this up to 20 lines to display on the screen at a time. Again, all that's doing is saying I'm going to display up to 20. This idea of paging and going to the next page, it will allow you, of course, to jump to the next 20 lines or so. But again, it's a quick way to see exactly what's in your time card. Now, how do I do this? Again, using that lovely control parameter maintenance screen, I can go into the system and set exactly how many lines I want to display on the screen. Now, that was time entry. You can see a lot's going into that because we're getting a lot of feedback. And we'll share a couple of things here in a second about some additional things that we're going to add to that in the upcoming releases. The next is expense entry. Well, the first one pretty much emulates what we just talked about, being able to show more than 5 line items in your expense report. Again, now it's even in the December release, it was up to 20 lines, and we have bumped it up to 30 plus lines here in the latest, greatest release. If you're on the February release, you will be able to go up to 30 plus. Again, how do I turn that on? Same place in the control parameter maintenance screen. You'll see this is going to be a common theme. Just to take a step back, why are we using this control parameter maintenance screen? Well, the huge benefit of this is that I can add a new functionality to the product. We've kind of made it an edict that if you're going to add a new feature to the product, you have to be able to turn it on or off. We can't make people have to customize the product to do that. It doesn't make sense. So going forward, we're going to go ahead and add this functionality to turn it on and off. The benefit of this screen is this screen exists. The data in the table, we can add data as we need to the table and not disturb what you already have. So that's a huge benefit. So we can continue to use this screen to enhance and turn on and off new features. Other areas we have gone ahead and enhanced. The expense report date, for some reason, when you were in the expense screen and you did a lookup, it would show you the ID, the process, expense report, and if it had a description, it would show the description. But for some reason, it never showed you the date. So you might say that just makes sense, and I would tend to agree with you. So now you also have the date because that's going to let you know, okay, I started an expense report last week, or I started it today. And if you do it a PV, do you want to figure out which one do I want to work on? I can quickly see by the date which one is the one I want to start working with. Just like the other fields, we can search on it. So if I clicked on report date, it would allow me to go ahead and choose a date, enter a date, and try to find something based on that value. Now here's a long-standing one, and I think in the past, the business portal, some people tried to write add-ons to do this, but a common request that we had was that we would like to be able to impersonate other users. Now this isn't a feature that you would want to give to everybody. We don't want to have Jeff going in and signing in as his boss to put his expenses in and so forth. But if I was an administrator for my boss, then we might say, okay, well, we're going to give you, Jeff, since you're the administrator, you can go ahead and put your time in for your boss. Or maybe you're in a situation where you don't want everybody to have access to web apps at the time, so it's my job to put in expenses for other people. So basically what happens is in the expense entry screen, the employee ID field, this lookup list becomes enabled. So you can see it is enabled because it's got the little red and I got my cursor on there. Generally, when you come into the expense entry screen, it's going to be disabled. But if I go ahead and I'm set up to have this ability, it's going to enable it where I can do a lookup list and go ahead and choose anybody out there to do that. Now, because we're doing this through that same idea of turning things on and off, we had to kind of be a little bit creative here. The ultimate goal with this impersonate user is that in the next release of SL, we will have more of a formal screen to allow you to determine who can impersonate and who cannot. But because we don't want to mess with the SL database, we don't really want to add or extend tables because that's always a no-no because it just makes everyone's life harder. We had to be a little bit creative, I would say, around how you're going to do this. So how do I give Jeff, or in this case web user, access rights to be able to do that? Well, we're going to automatically create a new user group in the group maintenance screen. And if you add a user to that group, that means that when they come into web apps that they will have the ability to change that. Now that's not the end game at all. That's not the way it's going to work once we come up with the next major release of SL. But this, again, I don't want you to have to wait a whole year to be able to get the ability to impersonate users. If it's something that's going to make your life easier today, I think this is a small, I wouldn't say a price, but a small way to get this out to you quicker, and then hopefully you see the benefit and we can continue to build out on that going forward. So again, great requests, make sense going forward and going from there. All right, on the approval side, it was the next thing, and again, this is not going to really show in these screenshots, but it was a lot of consistencies. If you're doing a line item and document approval, the screen should have a similar look and feel to them. The fields should be in the similar areas. They don't have to be exactly the same, but the idea of where your approval buttons, I think in one case, the approval button sat in the middle for some reason opposed to the very right, and didn't make a lot of sense. We're continuing to enhance and get the feedback based on the people that are using and say, hey, like this needs to look a little bit easier so I can get to it. Other things, the due to amounts were not being displayed in the header of the reports here. So I'm up here, I'm looking at this. You didn't have the due employee in the header, so I could see, I could have seen that the total amount of the expense report was this, but I didn't really quickly see that this is how much we're going to be paying this person. Same at the detail level line, we didn't have that amount as well, so now we have the total amount and total due to employee. Again, just little things that make it make a lot more sense to the end users. Now budgeting, this was a big change in the way it displays, but one that I've hoping it makes people's jobs a lot earlier. So when you're in the budget and you're looking inside the screen, in the past what you would have to do is if you had different budget types, you had basically a lookup list and you could choose each of the budget types one at a time. In this case it's Project Curry total budget, EAC, and FAC. I would select it, it would load a screen and it would show me all these fields, actual, commit, rate, units, amount, blah, 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 all that information. But I can only view it one at a time for one budget type. So does it make sense? We want to see them all. So what it does is it goes out and grabs all of them and it displays them in a grid. Again, they're still editable, so I can make adjustments to them and change them. But instead of having to load them one at a time, why? Let's just display them all at once so you can see them, make the adjustments, and move forward. Again, taking the way that it's always been in this case, and again, this is still the way it is in the Rich client, but moving it to a way that makes a lot more sense now that we have the flexibility and functionality of the web apps. Now on the resource management side, adding some additional fields, we've always been able to show you, and the idea again of the resource planning was that you've budgeted, in this case, you've budgeted 1,775 hours against this project. What about, okay, you're showing me how much I've scheduled so far in the grid. That's it could be in the grid or just total. So this is what I budgeted, and then it always showed me what was unscheduled. So what it's also now going to do is add how many actual hours have gone against it. So again, this screen is supposed to be used as kind of a sandbox, yeah? So I know that I've budgeted this much. I'm going to start throwing people onto the project, adding hours throughout the life of the project, and it's going to help me keep track of it. But then as we start getting into the project, I can pull this up and then see, okay, let's see how we're doing. Okay, we've got this many hours scheduled and unscheduled, but you know, how many hours have people started putting against that? So that's been added to the screen as well. We've added, it makes a lot of sense. Someone basically came back to us and said there's a lot of different reports out there that are going to allow you to go ahead and pull a specific employee for, be able to look at revenue versus expense. Why not help us with showing some of the information like goal information on the screen? So these screens existed. Now we're just adding the goal information that just makes it make a lot more sense to see exactly how you're doing. Gives you context to the data below. Does that mean he's doing well or not? Looking at the goal hours, rates, again, for this particular report against the data that's being displayed in the grid. So you'll see a couple different areas where we've added that. Being able to add to the assignment summary by resource, being able to add your planned hours to this as well. So we can now see, along with our actual hours, estimated costs, you can now see those planned hours that you have along with the estimated hours. You can see both of those displayed in the grid as well. Again, this is all based on feedback and moving forward. Same here with adding the planned hours to this screen as well. Now with the project analyst, we made a couple enhancements. Again, if you have been running the project analyst in the past, I definitely suggest you upgrade to the latest because there have been some fixes for speed, some items that were found that were slowing it down a little bit based on the way it was calling things that have been adjusted based on some research into some of the areas. So again, check that out. But what some other things we did as well is, for example, it used to say status U or S. If you knew what that meant, that's great. But if we were writing a report, make the report mean something to someone. So we've actually filled it in with the actual values. Next is inside of the account category maintenance, and I'm trying to see if I have that there. No, I don't. Inside of the account category maintenance, you have an ability to tell the sort order of how you want an account category to display. Usually like a 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, in the past, you could do that, but this report did not care what order you put into the system. So I can tell you now that the report looks to the account category sort order field and then displays them appropriately based on the way that you've set it up in the system. Next is we added a new field, again, based on a customer partner information. So what does that mean? That means that now I can come into the screen. Not only do I see a variance, but now I see a remaining value. So it's basically taking the original budget minus the period to date plus commitments and giving us a new way to look at the information. Now, you might say, Jeff, that's great, but we could have done that. Sure you can, and that's the big benefit of Project Analyst now, is that it is just a report so you can add what you like. But again, this was feedback that said, hey, listen, this little bit of additional information is really going to help me as a customer out to be able to use this report to really help us out and see how we're doing as far as remaining items that are out there. So we've got that new remaining field added to the, in this case, the task net profit. And a couple miscellaneous, there's been some, we kind of shoehorned this one in, but there's a quick query out there that obviously is available to you on the quick query through web apps, but also in the general ledger. And for some reason, the way the report was written originally, it always showed you the period entered when that's really not important in the journal transaction. The important is the period to post. So we automatically added that to the screen so you don't have to add it, and we removed the field that you don't. But no, those fields, if you really became attached to seeing your period entered, no problem. Those fields are still there, so you can add them on the fly, just like you can do with any quick query. The next thing that we have is the communicator, and this is the message. The big thing that we have out there is that we can go ahead and now, it used to sort based on some weird status. It didn't really make a lot of sense. But now we can actually go ahead and sort based on the create date, which makes sense. I want the latest things at the top of the screen. So now we're seeing, in this case, I'm seeing something from October 26th at the very top, then the 16th, well, that's a little different, of the 2014 and the 22nd of 1998. So wow, a big range of things there. But again, the idea what I'm showing you here is now it's going to sort based on putting the most recent at top. The next thing that we have is obviously we've edited the menus a bit. We've added some menus for the accounts payable for the vendor maintenance, customer maintenance, which we'll talk about in a second. So those are available to you as well, and that takes us right to here. So customer maintenance is now available on web apps. This is, again, based on your access rates, whether you want to be able to add a new one, edit, or make adjustments to an existing customer that's out there. You have that same bit of functionality out here. So again, great for a person who's on the road. Maybe it's your job to make adjustments to a customer. Maybe you need to go ahead and put them on hold or something to that effect, that you need to be able to jump in here and make adjustments. Or if someone asks you a question, you want to be able to look it up and look at the details. Same with the vendor maintenance screen. Again, the same set of information that you're used to seeing in the Rich Client is now available remotely here via vendor maintenance, as well as employee maintenance. So being able to do employee, and this employee maintenance is the employee maintenance for the payroll modules. So that's where that's where this employee maintenance comes from. So the next thing is, where are we at in this whole lovely roadmap? Well, we kind of talked about it a little bit. Again, the end of last year, CU2 came out for Rich Client, and at the same time we released our web apps of December release. As I said, in the web apps, that continues to release basically every month. So it's now, where are we at? We're the 7th of the month. Look here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to have a new release of web apps come out and continue to go on forward. The big question you might have is, when is that next major release? Well, that's currently scheduled for the 2018 timeframe. So that's the general idea. We're probably looking at least a year out from now. This will allow us, again, throughout the year, you'll continue to get web app updates, which is really going to change, because usually we would generally hold all the web app updates until 2018. So just so you know, web apps will continue to add on functionality and feature throughout the year. You'll probably see webinars coming from me going throughout the year, updating you on some of the great new items that we had around there. And also, make sure you're going out the customer source, because we'll update information on there as well. But as far as the next major release for the Rich Client, which we're used to, major release of 2015, again, the next one will be in the 2018 timeframe, so that will allow us to go ahead and display that information. So, got a lot going on. again, with web apps, got a lot of great things going here with the rich client. So hopefully that's going to show you where we are at. The next thing I wanted to do, and I purposely left a little bit of time, is to talk to you about, give you a chance for you to ask any questions that you might have on SL 2015 CU2 and also on the web apps. What are the things that are happening out there, and what can we talk about there? So with that, I'm going to pause here and say, Chris, if we can go ahead and take a look out there and see, again, if you have any questions, there's a chat box that you can click on and go ahead and type in a question. So please feel free to start doing that. And Chris, if you...
Yep. Hey, Jeff. Yep, there's no questions towards me as of right now.
Okay.
Did anything come on your end?
Yep, let's see. Okay, I do have a couple here. First, I think I answered some of these, so I'm just going to reiterate some of them that came in that I saw. The first one that I saw was the releasing of CU2 and the time frame. Again, that did happen back at the end of December. Another question I have is what is involved in installing. It is kind of a standard installation, meaning that it will require that you go ahead, but here's the thing, is it can install over your current version. So we can, a hotfix allows us to not have to do a full uninstall, reinstall, so forth. So this can install over top of it. Was told by development that there is a little uninstall around the client for the end users because of some fixes that were made underlying, so look for that. And then it will be the standard going ahead and updating the database and updating the information. That's adding all the new procs or any adjustments to the existing things. So that will be out there as well. So again, December is when it came out. We continue to build on top of that, and so if there's any, to let you know, that didn't mean that at CU2 all hot fixes were done. We continue to address any issues that are out there, so it's not like the end of life of 2011. We continue to move and enhance that as well as we build out new functionality. So that is out there. It was asking about web apps. What I talked to you today about was the fact that there are web apps, and the features that I talked about were around the December release. Subsequently, there has been a January release and there has been a February release. I kind of wanted to get your questions that you had because I saw those. Just to give you an idea, there are additional features that, again, that will be coming out in the March and probably closer to the April timeframe. Things like being able to open a time card after you submit it is one of the areas that we're looking into enhancing. And I've seen early looks at that, so I know that is definitely coming, so I can talk about it a little bit and not get in too much trouble. There's some other areas for making data entry easier in the time entry screen, with making it easier to quickly see whether you have entered your invoice comments or your items into there, so that'll be coming as well. There's some enhancements to rearrange some of the data on the screen. For example, the approval screen, being able to view more information in less space. That was an area of request, and we've added that onto it as well. So lots of things that are out there, and so we're really excited about what's coming out with the web apps, and definitely stay tuned here to SBS. Check with your consultants again, and also check on Microsoft's customer source as we continue to update and give you guys information on the latest and greatest releases. So with that, it looks like I've gotten all the couple of the questions that I had in there. Chris, I want to go ahead and turn it over to you to kind of let people know what they can do if they have additional questions or want to get in touch with SBS.
Great. Well, thanks, Jeff, for presenting. We really appreciate it. As you can see up on the screen, there are a bunch of different ways you can stay connected with SBS. Feel free to contact us by phone number. You can look at our website at www.sdsgroupusa.com. Or if you have any questions, you can always email your account manager or info@sdsgroupusa.com. Like I said before, this webcast was recorded, so it will be on our website as well as our YouTube channel. So without any further ado, thanks everyone for your time, and have a great rest of your day.